One random sneeze from me blows the skirts up on every woman in the city. Flicking a stray booger can literally plunge a whole nation into absolute ruin, and it is all because I bought a used glass ecosphere with a miniature world inside. Those tiny black dots in the tank are not ants. They are living, breathing human beings, and they look up at me as their life-giving deity who showers them with blessings. Right now, tens of thousands of these tiny people are kneeling before an altar. Their emperor Zhao Xun holds both hands up to the sky, begging, "Oh heaven, Daqian has suffered a 3-year drought. Starving citizens lie dead everywhere. My people are even swapping their own children for food. If we must perish, send your wrath down on me. Zhao Xuan alone, stop torturing the people of Daqian." His tiny, desperate voice drifted right into my ears. I happened to be eating breakfast right then, so I pinched a tiny crumb of biscuit and dropped it next to the altar. Then I quickly grabbed a magnifying glass to watch their reaction. Inside that muddy kingdom of Daqian, Zhao Xun knelt numbly before the altar. Behind him, all his civil and military officials were weeping. Just then, the sky suddenly went dark. Zhao Xun looked up in sheer confusion and saw 2 massive fingers like pillars reaching the sky, parting the clouds. Then a glowing, strange meteorite landed with a massive bang right next to the altar. The entire capital city shook violently from the impact. Zhao Xun was so terrified he collapsed. Before he could even process it, a mouth-watering aroma swept the city. In an instant, a starving soldier chopped off a chunk of biscuit with his sword and swallowed it. The next second, he jumped up shouting, "Your Majesty, this is edible grain. It tastes amazing." I feel like I have endless energy. Hearing this, Zhao Xun tossed his royal dignity aside, rushed to the crumb, and hacked off a sweet piece for himself. Warm energy immediately rushed through his body. Heaven sent immortal grain. This is a miracle. The true God has appeared. Zhao Xun dropped hard to his knees and kowtowed 3 times. Chaoxian, the 9th emperor of Daqian, kowtows to the great God. Thank you for this divine food. Thank you for saving our lives. Watching this, tens of thousands of citizens started kowtowing like crazy. Right then, a cold robotic voice echoed inside my head. Host has connected with the miniature Qian Dynasty creator system. Binding successful. Your identity is the Hay Ocean God. Your duty is to feed and intervene in the Qian Dynasty to earn divine grace points. Swap points for advanced blueprints and special skills. Currently, Daqian's national fate is on the verge of collapse. 3 years of extreme drought encircled by enemies. I stared at the leftover biscuit in my hand and my mouth curled into a grin. I spent $50 on a tank and got an entire empire for free. They even worship me as a god. What is cooler than being a creator? I watch the little people eating so happily. But they will choke if they only eat dry food, right? So I filled a bottle cap with mineral water and poured it down their dry riverbed. Down there, the people of Daqian were sharing the immortal food. Suddenly, someone pointed up. "Look, the heavenly river water is falling from the sky." They all looked in amazement. They saw a giant red disc tilting, sending a crystal-clear waterfall straight down. The current filled the riverbed in an instant. Seeing this, the citizens leaped into the moat. Wow, this water is sweet, with absolutely no dirt in it. For these ancient people who only ever drank bitter, well water, bottled, mineral water was pure nectar. Zhao Xuan scooped up the water. Our God has not abandoned us. Daqian is saved. Right then, the system chimed again. Creator sent down sweet rain. Loyalty of Daqian citizens increased. Gained 500 divine grace points. This is way too easy. Just as I was about to browse the system shop, I noticed a plume of smoke rising inside the ecosphere. I leaned closer to the glass. A dark horde of soldiers was marching toward Daqian, riding bizarre flea-like beasts. Everywhere they went, villages were slaughtered. A day passed inside the tank. I looked at the capital city where the defending general fell to his knees before Zhao Xun. Your Majesty, 30,000 Northern Wolf Clan cavalry are at the pass. Our border guard is wiped out. Their riders are only 10 miles away. Our army cannot turn the tide. The citizens who were celebrating moments ago went numb with fear. Zhao Xun stared at the approaching horde in utter despair. They are ruthless. Once they breach the walls, they will slaughter everyone for 10 days. Daqian will fall. Hear me, soldiers, defend the capital to your absolute last breath. We will never let these ruthless barbarians take a single step inside. By now, the entire Wolf Clan army had gathered right outside the city walls. Their leader wore a wicked grin. Warriors get ready to butcher this entire city. Watching this unfold, I grabbed a pair of long-handled tweezers. How dare you attack my people? You guys must be tired of living. I aimed the tweezers and slammed them down right in front of the enemy army. A massive, deep chasm ripped open. swallowing countless soldiers instantly. In less than 10 seconds, the army of 30,000 suffered over 50% casualties. Their leader looked up in sheer terror. What kind of monster is that up on the wall? Zhao Shun stared in absolute shock. This is divine power, the magic of the He Ocean. God, he raised his sword excitedly. Soldiers of Daqian, our God is with us. Charge out and destroy them. The hyped-up army poured out of the gates, slicing through the terrified remaining forces. After Zhao Shun led his victorious troops back, the system chimed once more in my head. Host has successfully defeated the Wolf Clan army, resolving the crisis. Gained 2,000 divine grace points. Congratulations on unlocking the heavy crossbow blueprint. Would you like to use it? I clicked confirm immediately. The blueprint turned into a beam of light that shot straight into Zhao Shun's mind. Once he received the knowledge, he led his court to kneel. Thank you, He Ocean God, for saving us. I nodded in satisfaction. This is only the beginning. Since I am playing creator, I am going to make Daqian the greatest empire ever. A whole month passed inside the ecosphere in just a couple of hours for me. For my tiny subjects in the ecosphere, this past month was an era of groundbreaking miracles. I spent 2,000 points on blueprints for water wheels and fertilizer, handing them to Zhao Shun. I even split a single grain of raw rice into dozens of tiny crumbs to plant. Inside the lands of Great Qian, the people treated those massive grains as immortal seeds far larger than millstones. Almost instantly, the parched soil outside the capital burst back to life. Word spread like wildfire across the country that the capital of Great Qian had been blessed by the gods. But 3 powerful border governors commanding massive armies of their own weren't pleased. They refused to pay homage to the capital, consumed by greed and jealousy. The 3 rebel leaders quickly joined forces, pooling their resources to assemble a massive army of 150,000 rebel troops under the banner of purging evil spirits. They immediately seized the 3 wealthiest southern prefectures, relying on the natural defenses of Linjiang City to block the capital. With Linjiang City blocking Great Qian's vital supply lines, the arrogant rebel leader even hung a wooden sign on the city wall. He wrote vile insults against me in dog blood. He used that blood to rally his men. Inside the city, this rebel commander was drinking and partying in his lavish mansion, holding a beautiful concubine in his arms, laughing. What bullshit, Haoshan God. If he has the guts, let him split my Linjiang City wide open. Even divine thunder can't crack my walls. I sneered when I heard his boast. So he dared to insult me to my face. He wanted to hide like a coward in his little shell. Fine, just wait. I rummaged through my drawer and pulled out some old glass marbles. Toys from my childhood. I placed one on my finger, aimed right at Linjiang City, and flicked. Instantly, the glass ball shot through the city gates, obliterating a crowd of rebels. Feeling the ground violently shudder, the terrified rebel leader scrambled out into the courtyard, screaming, "What on earth was that? Is this actual heavenly thunder?" I grinned at the sight. My flicking skills hadn't dulled one bit. But I wasn't finished. I loaded up the rest of the marbles and shot them one by one, bombarding Linjiang City with precision. The impact crushed those massive walls to dust instantly. A colossal shockwave tore through the streets, collapsing buildings everywhere. The rebels were vaporized before they could even utter a scream. In just 60 seconds, the allegedly invincible Linjiang City was reduced to smoking rubble. Watching this devastation from afar, Zhao Shan fell to his knees, kowtowing frantically toward me. His absolute devotion peaked at that very second. Then my system chimed in my head. Host has displayed divine authority. Great Qian has successfully achieved total unification. Awarded 8,000 divine grace points. Requirements for empire upgrade are met. Unlocked basic iron smelting blueprints and black powder formula. I smirked, scooping my glass marbles back up. The age of blades and spears is officially over. Next, it is time to introduce my little empire to the beautiful art of explosions. After crushing the regional rebellions, the empire entered a golden age. Equipped with the advanced ironworking and gunpowder recipes I gifted them, they developed rapidly. Their very first cannons were proudly rolled out onto the city ramparts. But I knew better. A massive technological leap like this inevitably fuels a civilization's dark ambitions for power. One day, out of pure boredom, I was scanning my territory with a magnifying glass. As my gaze drifted over the capital city's military gunpowder depot, I stopped. I caught sight of some shady figures. Tilting my glass for a better look, I realized it was the former Grand Chancellor Lin Yuan meeting secretly with his trusted henchmen. Pointing to a stack of prime gunpowder, Lin Yuan instructed, "The prince tests the new cannon today. Swap this premium powder with damp coal and sand. Then pack the cannon, meant for the prince, tight with sharp iron grit." Hearing this, his aides trembled in terror, stammering, "Chancellor, If that barrel ruptures, his highness will be torn to shreds." Lin Yuan sneered coldly. "Being torn to shreds is precisely the point. The emperor is utterly obsessed with that so-called god and gave everything to the crown prince. Once the boy dies, I will launch a coup in the chaos. Why shouldn't the imperial throne belong to my family?" I laughed coldly at his little plot. Scheming right under the creator's nose. Did he think I was blind? To deal with this parasite, I didn't even need physical force. With a quick thought, I triggered the system's divine broadcast function. Suddenly, my booming voice echoed directly from the skies above the capital city. "Grand Chancellor Lin Yuan is skulking in the underground powder depot, plotting to sabotage the cannon and assassinate the crown prince. Arrest him now. No mistakes." As my divine voice faded, the citizens of the capital stood frozen. Frantic whispers broke out everywhere. I shifted my gaze to the imperial study. Emperor Zhaoshan slammed his desk, standing up abruptly. "That old dog Lin Yuan, how dare he scheme against my son? Does he take me for granted? The god has exposed his hiding spot. Mobilize the imperial guards and arrest Lin Yuan and his accomplices right now. Bring them to me. I will slice this traitor into 1,000 pieces." Armed with imperial orders, the guards mobilized instantly, swarming the gunpowder depot. By then, Lin Yuan had completely collapsed. He lay trembling on the floor. Is that god truly all-knowing? I am finished. The guards kicked the depot doors open, violently dragging him out. That very afternoon, Lin Yuan suffered the death of 1,000 cuts. Watching this, I was in a great mood. Who says court intrigue is difficult? I completely disagree. I neutralized a massive crisis with just one sentence. It's not hard at all. Thinking this, I flopped onto my couch. It was midsummer in the real world. Feeling hot, I casually set my air conditioner down to 16 degrees. Just then, a cold mechanical system notification chimed in my head. "Warning. Host has activated cooling. A massive cold front will soon sweep across all of Qian. Extreme winter conditions are imminent. If no action is taken, the Empire will face a fatal crisis." Hearing this, I checked my air conditioner vent. A stream of freezing air was blowing directly out, and right into the ecosphere tank. To me, it was just a refreshing breeze. But for the miniature Qian Dynasty inside, it felt like a sudden ice age. I shut off the air conditioner instantly. Oh crap, I completely forgot about that scaling effect. I sprinted back over. Fierce, freezing blizzards were already howling inside the miniature world. The rivers had frozen solid. Water vapor condensed into massive palm-sized hailstones that rained down. Caught completely unprepared, my tiny civilians were turning purple from the cold. They collapsed into the snowbanks in heaps. Emperor Zhaoshan looked to the heavens in despair, crying, "O great God above, save Daqian. Save my people." I looked at the disaster. This tank has terrible temperature control. If I wait for the room to warm up naturally, my little humans will be entirely wiped out long before it does. Thinking fast, I ran to my closet, found an old winter coat, and ripped out handfuls of fluffy down. Using tweezers, I picked up the clumps to scatter them evenly over the freezing cities, weaving a massive thermal blanket. The citizens stared skyward in absolute shock. This isn't snow. It looks like giant goose feathers falling from above. And they are so warm, this must be a holy cloud sent by the divine. Seeing this miracle, the shivering, half-frozen people scrambled to bury themselves in the warm down. To keep things warm, I set up a small space heater next to the ecosphere tank. Once the temperature stabilized inside, I carefully plucked out all the tiny down feathers using a pair of tweezers. Down below, Zhaoshan kowtowed to the sky, crying tears of gratitude. He thanked the great Haoshan god for protecting Daoshan once more. Just then, my system chimed again. "Host has resolved the Ice Age crisis and saved the great Qian Dynasty. You have earned 10,000 Divine Grace points, unlocking item disassembly and teleportation abilities. With these permissions, I could break down any real-world item and teleport it straight into the miniature world." Hearing this made me feel pretty guilty, considering I caused this whole crisis myself. I never expected to get divine points just for cleaning up my own mess. For a second, I wondered if I could farm points using this exploit, but I shut that down fast. I want to be a benevolent god who cares for his people like his own kids. One bad slip-up, and they are wiped out. I decided to test this new breakdown ability. It is perfect for situations like earlier. I can shrink down feathers to the right scale and distribute them safely. Before this, I was terrified I might accidentally crush a tiny life. With that sorted, I crashed onto the couch for some much-needed sleep. Play acting as a god is exhausting. The next morning, I woke up stretched and glanced toward the coffee table. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw the ecosphere. It looked like absolute chaos inside. I jolted awake instantly and rushed over to the tank. The great Qian Dynasty was in ruins. Flames engulfed the miniature city, and most of its walls had collapsed. Tiny people sprinted through the streets, running for their lives. I frowned. It has only been peaceful for a few days. Why are they fighting already? Did some rebels escape the last purge? I leaned closer to the ecosphere for a better look, and the hair on my arm stood straight up. Huddled inside the tank was a bird-eating spider the size of my fist. To me, it was just a creepy crawler, but to the tiny residents in the ecosphere, this was different. This was an apocalyptic ancient demon beast. The city defense general waved his sword, screaming to fire at will and keep the monster away from the imperial palace gates. Dozens of miniature cannons fired in unison. A volley of tiny cannonballs pelted the giant spider, but they did not leave a scratch. Instead, the beast grew enraged. Aggravated by the attacks, it lashed out with a massive front leg sweeping through the crowd. Hundreds of soldiers fell instantly. Then it opened its jaws, spitting a stream of venom. The corrosive green acid melted rows of civilian homes into black sludge in seconds. Zhao Xuan personally led a vanguard to distract the spider and buy time for the citizens. Hold the line, everyone. Stand firm until the great Haoshan god arrives. He will slay this demon. Hearing this, I slammed my fist on the table in a surge of anger. Where did this stupid spider even crawl out from? How dare it terrorize my people? It must have a death wish. I grabbed a metal drawing compass and pinned it down. The spider screeched in agony. It lunged desperately toward Zhao Xuan, but it could not budge an inch. With the monster pinned, I ran to find a more permanent solution. I dashed to the utility room and grabbed my heavy-duty electric fly swatter. Walking back to the tank, I pressed the metal grid right against the struggling beast. From the perspective of my tiny citizens, a massive glowing grid covered the entire sky, unleashing furious divine lightning. Within seconds, the spider was roasted into a pile of ash. After a brief stunned silence, deafening cheers erupted throughout the entire empire. Zhao Xuan knelt before the smoking ruins of his palace, gazing up at the receding net of lightning. The great Haoshan god has summoned the divine thunder of the 9 heavens. Long live our protector. Smiling, I flipped off the power switch on my electric swatter. My system chimed again. Host has defeated the apocalyptic beast with divine thunder and protected the civilization. You have received 50,000 divine grace points. A month later, my tiny followers erected a solid gold statue of me in the main square of Great Chen. Now my daily morning routine starts with a quick inspection. I grab a magnifying glass and patrol my miniature empire. Since the citizens are so fanatically devout now, points are rolling in nonstop. Watching my kingdom grow feels incredible. But today I noticed a few suspicious tiny figures. Their outfits were completely different from the local styles, raising immediate red flags. I watched their leader scan the area cautiously. He pulled a bundle of explosives from his coat. 3 accomplices crowded around him, quickly running a long fuse toward the corner of the Imperial gunpowder depot. The leader sneered as he lit the fuse, muttering that half the capital would soon blow to pieces. Witnessing this, I casually picked up a half-empty glass of water. Using my breakdown ability, I targeted a single droplet of water. It shrank to the size of a grain of sand, flew into the tank, and instantly extinguished the burning fuse. The leader froze in absolute disbelief, staring up at the clear, cloudless plastic sky. He tried lighting the fuse again and again, but I was not having it. I put out every single spark he made. Infuriated, the leader strapped the bomb pack to his chest, shouting, "Cover me while I charge in. There is no way this is magic." His henchmen hesitated, looking at the volatile explosives. They stammered that it was too dangerous and they would all blow up, but the stubborn leader ignored their pleas entirely. "What are you cowards afraid of? Destabilizing this empire is worth our lives. We will go down in glory." By this point, I was getting bored of this little game. I condensed the water into 4 tiny droplets and sent them flying toward the spies. Within seconds, all 4 intruders were securely trapped inside floating liquid spheres, thrashing wildly. No matter how hard they struggled, they could not break through the surface tension. The terrified leader banged on his watery cage, screaming at the sky to stop using cheap magic. I summoned the Divine Eagle to alert Zhao Xuan about the intrusion. Moments later, a platoon of Imperial guards came charging into the courtyard, waving burning torches. Seeing the floating bubbles, the Emperor bowed deeply to the sky, praising the divine water for preserving the realm. Behind him, the soldiers fell to their knees in awe. They chanted in unison, praising my boundless divine power. Then another system notification popped up. Host has successfully demonstrated unmatched godlike power to his subjects. Their faith level had now reached a fanatical peak. I was rewarded with an additional 30,000 divine grace points. The chime of my balance going up felt amazing. Earning points this fast put me in a fantastic mood. I glanced down at the gasping spies who were starting to pass out. With a single thought, I popped the bubbles. The spheres burst, dropping the half-drowned spies to the paved ground. Zhao Xuan sneered coldly, waving his hand to order their arrest. He wanted answers immediately. Nobody causes trouble right under the nose of the great Haoshan god. The guards bound the spies securely. Under swift interrogation, their leader spat blood and confessed, "We are agents from the giant spirit kingdom. Your sudden divine miracles caught our emperor's eye. But do not think your little empire is invincible in this world." Zhao Xuan frowned deeply at those words. "What on earth is the giant spirit kingdom? Why have I never heard of them?" The surrounding ministers exchanged equally bewildered glances. The spy laughed like a maniac. "You frogs in a well. Across the endless sea, our giant spirit kingdom is the true overlord. Our territory is 10 times larger than yours, larger than Great Qian. Our invincible fleet has already set sail. They will hit your shores in less than 7 days. Can your so-called Haoshan god stop our 1,000 warships? Once they arrive, Great Qian will burn to ash, and your people will be our slaves for generations." Hearing this, Zhao Xun kicked him to the ground in fury. "How dare you insult the ocean god, drag him out, and execute him by 1,000 cuts?" As they hauled the spy away, Zhao Xuan's face grew dark. He rushed to the altar, fell to his knees, and prayed, "O ocean, God Great Qian is still rebuilding. Now these overseas barbarians are invading with their full might, and our navy is far too weak. I fear we cannot hold them." Right then, the ecosystem tank in front of me rippled strangely. The eastern edge of the glass suddenly began to stretch and expand. The frosted glass pushed outward, revealing a vast open ocean. At the far edge, the faint silhouette of a massive continent appeared along with a swarm of tiny black dots. They were cutting through the waves. Peering through my magnifying glass, I saw thousands of menacing warships flying the banners of the giant spirit kingdom. Just then, a system notification flashed before my eyes. Ecosystem world map expanded. War mode has been activated. New faction detected giant spirit kingdom. Watching the fleet march across my miniature world, a sudden urge to conquer surged within me. I wanted every single faction to bow before my divine power. Grinning, I grabbed my desktop cooling fan. It was time for these overseas invaders to experience a high-dimensional weather disaster. 10 minutes later, the 1,000-ship fleet had completely blockaded the Great Qian coastline. The decks swarmed with heavily armored soldiers of the giant spirit kingdom. Their naval general marched to the bow. "Listen up, brat Zhao Xuan. I am your Grandpa Qihu. With our massive fleet here, how dare you call those broken fishing boats a navy? If you value your life, open the gates and surrender. Now, tear down that stupid golden statue of your god, and I might just spare your miserable soul." Up on the city walls, Great Qian's Minister of War fell to his knees, pale with terror. "Your Majesty, the enemy has already sunk 3 of our patrol boats. Our commander is holding the estuary with what is left, but our ships are too small to stop them." Zhao Xuan glared at the coast, his eyes burning with fury. "We have the blessing of the ocean god and the cannons he bestowed upon us. They will never set foot on our land. Load the coastal batteries immediately. Aim at those warships and hit them with everything you have." On his command, the coastal defense guns roared to life, hurling dozens of iron shells toward the invading fleet. But Qihu only sneered. With a sharp wave of his hand, massive layered obsidian shields rose from the sides of his warships, blocking the incoming barrage. The shells slammed into the barriers, leaving nothing but faint sparks. Qihu burst into mocking laughter. "This is your god's weapon. It can't even scratch my shields. You dare mock us with this garbage. Let me show you real firepower." All ships obliterate their coastal defenses. Within seconds, hundreds of cannons roared from the fleet. Shells rained down on the shoreline like a meteor shower. Great Qian's batteries were blasted to rubble, and their gunners were blown to pieces in the explosions. Panicked messengers rushed up the city walls. "Your Majesty, the western battery is gone. Our navy is breaking, and the 3rd detachment has been entirely wiped out. The enemy is landing." Hearing one disaster after another, Zhao Xuan fell to his knees on the ramparts. "Haoshan, God, please show your divine power and save us." Behind him, the terrified soldiers collapsed to their knees, crying out to the sky, "Please, ocean god, manifest your divine power. Save the Great Qian." Qihu sneered, shaking his head. "You're at death's door and still praying to a make-believe god. What a bunch of clueless fools. Even if he did show up, I'd toss him into the sea myself." Outside the tank, I watched this play out. I aimed my mini desk fan right at their massive armada and hit the power switch. As the blades began to spin, they created a gentle draft. To me, it was barely a breeze, but to the micro-world below, it was a cataclysmic world-ending hurricane. The peaceful waters instantly surged with towering 100-foot waves. The fierce winds began ripping the giant spirit kingdom's proud fleet to shreds. The cruel laughter died on Qihu's face. Clutching the railing of his fracturing flagship, he screamed, Where did this storm come from? Steady the ship, Sire. But it was too late. A massive towering wave crashed down, snapping his massive flagship clean in half. Chi-Hu sank into the abyss without even a scream, swallowed by the raging sea. The other warships met an even grimmer fate. In mere seconds, the proud 1,000-ship armada was completely obliterated, leaving only debris. Scattered planks drifted on the surface alongside a few drowning soldiers. Up on the walls, Zhao Xuan and his people stared at the empty sea, completely frozen in shock. Finally, Zhao Xuan snapped out of it. He threw himself to the ground, sobbing with gratitude. The ocean god sent a divine gale. He has saved our empire. A massive wave of belief surged into me like a rising tide. Right on cue, the system dinged. Host has successfully destroyed the giant spirit kingdom's armada, resolving the national crisis. Gained 100,000 points. Warning. Host's total accumulated divine grace has now surpassed 200,000 points. I looked at the glowing screen and smiled. This was an absolute jackpot. True Great Qian's weapons were overwhelmingly advanced 3 months ago, but against these newly unlocked factions from the map expansion, they just don't stand a chance. To help them conquer this tiny world and build an unstoppable empire, I needed to upgrade their technology. I opened up the system store to browse. I scrolled through the blueprints. After comparing my options, I bought the designs for a steam engine and a precision industrial lathe, along with a generator blueprint. These 3 technologies form the backbone of a modern industrial society. With them, Great Qian could finally manufacture truly advanced military weapons. Once I confirmed the purchase, the system chimed. Transaction complete, 80,000 points deducted. Blueprints have been successfully transferred to your personal library. Would you like to transmit this knowledge directly to Zhao Xuan? I nodded. Confirm injection. Suddenly, 3 brilliant beams of golden light materialized and shot straight into the Emperor's forehead. On the city walls, Zhao Xuan stiffened as an endless torrent of advanced engineering flooded his mind. After 15 minutes, he slowly opened his eyes, completely transformed. Falling to his knees once more, he wept. The ocean. God has truly blessed us. They praised me for granting them supreme immortal magic, wishing the Qian Dynasty would last forever in gratitude. After that, I took all my remaining divine grace points and exchanged them all for Zhao Xuan. I poured them all into Zhao Xuan. Looking inside the ecosphere, I watched as everything quickly became bustling and energetic, filling my heart with a profound sense of achievement. Time flows much faster in the ecosphere than in the real world. In just 3 days of real time, the entire Qian Empire began a wild wave of weapon innovation. Using the knowledge I granted them, their craftsmen spent only a single month building their first precision lathe. With this master machine, they finally manufactured rifled gun barrels and bolts, completely fixing the flaws of smoothbore cannons. Soon they even successfully developed their first mortar. On the day of the firing range test, I watched closely in person. As soon as the gunner pulled the breech block, the shell blasted a target 20 feet away, shattering the stone wall to dust. Every official there gasped in absolute shock. The old redcoat cannons they used before had a maximum range of only 3 miles, and hitting any target was pure luck. But this new cannon has 6 times the range, and its accuracy is also unbelievably high. The immortal magic from their god is truly miraculous. Zhao Xuan stared at the smoking muzzle with excitement. Start mass production immediately. Within 3 months, I want all coastal batteries and warships equipped with this divine weapon. Right after that, Qian developed the steam engine. Before this, their navy only relied on wind power, and their fragile wooden hulls splintered easily. But once they had steam engines, the Ministry of Works took just 1.5 months to build their first all-steel, steam-powered ironclad. Its hull is wrapped in thick forged alloy armor, featuring 6 rapid-fire breech-loading cannons on each side and a massive siege gun mounted right at the bow. It wasn't just the Navy either. The Army's equipment went through a total revolution. Using the precision lathe and steam engine, craftsmen built tracked armored vehicles and Qian's very first bolt-action rifles. I peered at this fully modernized empire through a magnifying glass, my grin growing wider by the second. Then I activated the Divine Realm broadcast system. The Dueling Kingdom has dared to invade Qian and murder my people. Now that Qian is at its peak strength, mobilize immediately and flatten the Dueling Kingdom. Even if the sky falls, I will hold it up for you. Hearing my voice, Zhao Xuan fell to his knees. Zhao Xuan obeys the sea god's sacred decree. I will lead our army to burn Dueling to the ground and avenge our past shame. He issued the march orders that very day, and 12 ironclads sailed out of port in a massive grand procession. I turned my gaze toward the Dueling Kingdom's waters. where their naval commander watched the approaching fleet with absolute sneer and disdain. And here I thought it was a real threat, he scoffed. Just that brat Zhao Xuan bringing scrap metal to die. They got lucky last time winning with some bizarre demonic wind, and now they think they are gods. How dare they challenge me with those tin cans? Send orders to Juling Valley immediately. I order a full offensive. Let them learn who truly rules these open seas. As he spoke, Juling's entire armada deployed into the water. Their smug commander grabbed his megaphone to mock them once more. Hey, Zhao Xuan, surrender now, and I might leave your corpse in one piece. Behind him, the Juling soldiers roared with laughter. Zhao Xuan didn't waste a single word. He drew the long sword from his hip and shouted, "Fire instantly!" The main guns of the 12 ironclads unleashed hell at once. A single volley reduced the Juling ships to floating sawdust. Their entire navy was left completely paralyzed with shock, unable to comprehend that the wooden warships they prided themselves on were nothing but paper in front of Daqian's heavy artillery. Deafening explosions echoed across the water, and after just a few massive salvos, Juling's proud fleet of 800 warships was wiped out. Zhao Xuan waved his hand coldly. Advance, invade the shores of the Juling kingdom. Avenge our fallen people. Daqian's troops surged onto the beaches in landing crafts, setting up heavy Maxim machine guns to tear through the desperate defenders of the Juling kingdom. In under 2 hours, their coastal defense line collapsed entirely, and the Daqian army began their unstoppable march all the way to the capital. I shifted my focus inside the Juling palace, where their emperor Manly slumped miserably on his dragon throne. Daqian's forces are at our very gates, he shrieked. Find me a solution now. Below him, the panicked ministers only stared at each other in helpless confusion. Suddenly, their high priest fell to his knees with a thud. Your Majesty, we have one final option. We must summon the ancient sea god we have worshipped for generations. If the sea god descends to this world, he will easily crush the entire Daqian army and make their pathetic ocean deity pay the ultimate price. Manly leaped up from his throne in desperation. Prepare the offerings. This instant I will personally climb the altar to summon the sea god, and we will slaughter every last one of those Daqian bastards. I actually found myself quite amused by this. I wanted to see what kind of secret this second-hand ecosystem tank of mine was hiding. Soon by the coast, the Juling kingdom held their grand sacrificial ceremony. Manly knelt at the shoreline holding the offerings in his hands and praying desperately for his sea god to show up. A second later, from a small crack in the rock inside my tank, a tiny hermit crab slowly crawled out. Seeing this, my mouth twitched. I honestly thought they were about to summon something epic, but it turns out to be a lazy hermit crab that had been playing dead. Still, I underestimated this little guy's devastating impact on those miniature humans. Right then, the hermit crab waved its claws and scuttled toward the Daqian fleet. Just by shuffling past it, crushed 3 of their vanguard gunboats. Complete panic erupted among the Daqian soldiers, and the frontline general frantically ordered a full barrage. But their bullets and shells did absolutely nothing to that hard shell. The crab just kept crawling, and one ironclad after another was splintered and destroyed. Everyone was consumed by terror. Manly pointed at the retreating Daqian ships and roared with laughter. Behold, this is the true sea god of our mighty kingdom. He is a real god. Where is that pathetic deity of yours now? Does he even dare to show his face? He is not fit to lick our god's boots. Once our sea god crushes the rest of your fleet, he will tear down your golden statues and flatten your entire empire. Your god cannot save you. Our deity is the one true god of this world. My expression turned icy the second I heard that. How dare they compare me to a stupid tiny crab? I reached my hand directly into the tank, snatched up the scuttling crab, and easily lifted it right out of the water. Watching this happen, every single person in the Juling kingdom froze in sheer terror. What were those colossal sky-high pillars? Their sea god was being snatched away like a toy. I held the crab up to my eyes and gave a gentle squeeze. It instantly shattered into tiny pieces, and I casually tossed the remains back down. I leaned back against my ecosystem tank. Down below, Manly and the giant spirit citizens stood frozen. Our god is dead. Their faith instantly shattered. They lost all courage to resist. As Manly collapsed in despair, deafening cheers erupted from the Dacian side. Long live the supreme god of Haosha. Crush the giant spirit kingdom. Prove our god's might. With roaring morale, the Dacian army swept forward like a tidal wave, capturing the capital in a flash. The kingdom was completely erased, expanding Daqian's territory tenfold. I then used my teleportation power to transfer all their wealth, food, and supplies. I sent every bit of plunder back to the Dacian homeland. Even better, the newly conquered lands held massive iron ore deposits that solved our resource shortage. Those mines gave a massive boost to our rapidly growing industrial system. In just one single month, railway tracks were laid all the way into the conquered territory. Countless tons of ore flowed straight to the factories in the homeland. I kicked back on my couch, watching the system panel on my screen while sipping a drink. My divine favor points kept ticking up. Listening to those tiny citizens in my miniature world praise my name day and night filled me with pure satisfaction. Conquering the giant spirit kingdom secured Dacian's dominance and locked in my status as their supreme deity. Even the most remote border villages started building shrines. My statues rose everywhere. Every household prayed to me daily, sending a steady stream of faith power straight to me. I assumed no one would ever challenge us again. But I overlooked a basic truth. Having treasure makes you a target even if you do nothing wrong. Dacian's rapid rise to power had made the neighboring empires deeply uneasy. They were losing sleep over our success. Just then, my ecosphere map updated. Outside of Dacian's central continent, 4 massive new landmasses suddenly materialized before me. Dozens of foreign nations spanned across these newly revealed worlds. Only 3 months after we crushed the giant spirit kingdom, the rival leaders began plotting in secret. The 4 greatest powers sent secret envoys to a shadowy alliance meeting in the distant Black Market Empire. Unfortunately for them, they had no idea I was watching. I saw everything they did. Inside their secret palace chamber, the 4 enemy rulers gathered under the lead of Emperor Qian, who glared at his co-conspirators. Qian leaned in. Everyone Dacian's ambition is glaringly obvious. It has only been 3 months since they annihilated the giant spirit kingdom, and yet look at them. Their railroad tracks already reach the western continent, and their ironclad warships patrol our ports daily. If we do nothing, their army will soon march right to our gates. The high priest of the eternal tribe sighed. Dacian's overwhelming power comes from that deity they worship. Those iron ships and advanced weapons are all gifts from their god. A direct conflict gives us 0 chance of victory. Hearing this, the fierce Khan of the Golden Horde slammed his heavy fist onto the wooden table in frustration. So what is your plan? If we can't win an open battle, do we just kneel and surrender our ancestral lands? No warrior of the Golden Horde is that cowardly. Emperor Qian took a slow sip of his wine. A direct fight is foolish, but we can play dirty. Dacian looks strong and prosperous, but they have vulnerabilities. The former citizens of the giant spirit kingdom harbor immense resentment. If we secretly fund and arm them, we can easily set Dacian's entire backyard on fire. Furthermore, I will deploy elite suicide squads to infiltrate their cities and sabotage their factories. The eternal high priest grinned with a dark, sinister sneer. We can also spread rumors that their deity is a malevolent demon. If we shatter the people's faith and choke off their god's power, Dacian will collapse entirely. They kept plotting, getting more excited by the minute. Suddenly, Qian drew his dagger, sliced open his own palm, and let his blood drip into the shared wine bowl. Today, we seal this blood alliance. Once victorious, we will divide Dacian's vast wealth and territory equally among us. Anyone who breaks this oath shall be utterly destroyed. The other rulers sliced their palms, mixed their blood into the bowl, and drank it down. Up in the real world, I watched them closely, but decided not to interfere yet. First, I wanted to test Zhao Xuan to see if he could handle this crisis alone. If I shield him forever, Dacian will never truly grow into a powerhouse. Second, I wanted to test the loyalty of my followers and see if cheap lies could sway them. 2 weeks later, Dacian's main transit line suffered its first major attack. A massive blast tore through the area. Hundreds of meters of track twisted like wire, leaving a crater in the roadbed. An oncoming steam train derailed violently, crashing instantly. Cars rolled over, leaving soldiers and workers badly injured. Zhao Xuan rushed investigators to the scene, but before they could find anything more, disaster struck in rapid succession. The main locomotive factory outside the capital suddenly burst into flames at midnight. By the time emergency crews arrived, the entire facility had been reduced to smoldering ash. Right on cue, enemy spies began whispering poison throughout the land. They claimed these disasters were proof that I was an evil deity who had abandoned them. They blamed every tragedy on my supposed departure. Yet despite the psychological warfare, not a single person in Dacian faltered, from the highest nobles to the farmers. Everyone remained absolutely convinced that their god would never forsake them. Officials kept working diligently, the streets stayed peaceful, and daily life continued without any panic. Their devotion stood unbroken. Then enemy raiders struck a small border village. Though tiny, every single home in that village housed a small shrine with my statue. Once the raiders breached the gates, they dragged everyone into the central square. Their leader pointed a mocking finger at my stone statue and barked at the crowd. Your god fled. Long ago he left you to rot. Now grab a hammer and shatter this worthless relic right now. Anyone who refuses gets a blade through their throat. Without hesitating, the old village chief stepped forward, leaning heavily on his wooden crutch. Our God has rescued us countless times. Through everything we remain true. We will never turn our backs on him. To touch that statue, you must carve through my old bones first. Instantly, every villager formed a protective wall in front. Enraged, the commander drew his blade, pressing the cold steel right against the chief's throat. Stubborn old fool, you stand on the brink of death. Where is your deity now? If he actually exists, why does he not save you? You are all brainwashed fools. I will burn this village to ashes, and your God will not appear. Up in the real world, I watched this unfold. I lightly flicked my finger, channeling my matter decomposition skill. Instantly, a violent, crushing gale swept down. Over a dozen enemy soldiers were hurled through the air, slamming violently against the walls, completely paralyzed. I raised my hand again over the village square. Thick stone barriers erupted, shielding the villagers and my statue. A second later, my voice echoed across every corner of the empire. And I have never left. How dare you harm my people? Your crimes are unforgivable, and today you will pay the ultimate price. With a simple wave of my hand, hundreds of water needles fell from the sky, wiping out every last rebel soldier. I then turned my gaze toward the great Qian Imperial Palace. Zhao Xuan, since the four kingdoms are actively seeking death, you shall lead the great Qin army to crush these rebels. I grant you sacred divine armor and immortal magic. Zhao Xuan bowed deeply toward the sky, showing immense respect. Two shall obey your divine oracle lord. Meanwhile, I stood before the ecosphere, gazing down at my miniature world. By now, Great Qin had fully recovered its strength. Factories ran around the clock, driving its national strength to an unprecedented peak. The first target I chose for conquest was the Golden Horde, located on the northern continent. This place is an endless prairie, and the entire population is trained for war. Cavalry is their absolute core force, boasting millions of elite riders. The Golden Horde's Khan slammed his fist on the table and laughed wildly inside his royal tent. Great Qin's ships are nothing but scrap iron. Once on our grasslands, they lose all advantage. My million-strong army only needs a single charge to crush all of Great Qin's factories and railways. I want to see what their god can do now. I sneered at his arrogance. Since they rule the battlefield with cavalry, I will grant Great Qin a fleet of war machines specifically designed to counter them. I opened the system store and spent 500,000 divine grace points in one go to directly purchase tracked assault vehicles, high-altitude hot air balloons, and core blueprints for semi-automatic anti-tank rifles. These three weapons are perfectly suited for the open prairie. With a single thought, the blueprints transformed into streams of light and entered Zhao Xuan's mind. He instantly ordered full-scale production to begin manufacturing this God-given gear at all costs. Just one day later, the Great Qin army completed an unprecedented equipment upgrade. With everything ready, Zhao Xuan personally led 100,000 soldiers of the Northern Legion into the northern continent. Meanwhile, the Golden Horde Khan lined up 300,000 elite cavalry for battle. He sat atop his tall warhorse, watching the slowly advancing Great Qin army. With those weird-looking iron boxes, you dare to fight my prairie lions. Today I will teach you who the real overlord of these grasslands is. Charge. At his command, 300,000 cavalry waved their curved sabers, roaring as they charged toward the Great Qin camp. Yet the instant the cavalry entered firing range, a massive rumble echoed from the sky. Dozens of huge hot air balloons rose into the air, hovering above the cavalry formation. The next second, countless high explosive shells fell from the sky, detonating violently in the dense ranks of horses. Terrified steeds panicked and scattered, throwing the neat charging lines into instant chaos. Witnessing this devastating scene, the Golden Horde Khan watched in absolute horror. But Great Qin gave him no time to react as dozens of tracked assault vehicles charged forward with a thunderous roar, driving over the grass as easily as if on flat ground. The roof-mounted heavy machine guns unleashed long tongues of fire, cutting down the cavalry in rows. They could not even get close. Still, a few desperate soldiers managed to reach the side of the vehicles, swinging their blades with all their might. But their strikes only made useless, clinking noises, failing to leave even a single scratch. In just 30 minutes, over half of the 300,000 elite cavalry lay dead or wounded. The survivors completely shattered, fleeing in terror. The Golden Horde Khan was utterly paralyzed. His legs buckled, and he tumbled from his horse. Zhao Xuan pressed a blade to his throat, declaring, "The Golden Horde has tormented the people of Great Qin. Today, your nation falls with a swift strike." Zhao Xuan executed the Khan. Right then, a system notification chimed in my ear. Host assisted Great Qin in annihilating the Golden Horde. You receive 200,000 divine grace points and unlock grassland mining rights. These vast pastures will provide countless top-tier war horses, enabling Great Qin to rapidly build a formidable cavalry force that works in perfect tandem with their steam-armored units. With the north secured, I set my sights on the southern continent. Choked with dense jungles, this land is the territory of the Eternal Tribe. They do not maintain a large army, but they are experts at concocting lethal poisons and commanding venomous insects and beasts. Every soldier carries toxic supplies, taking lives silently and unseen. They have established countless poison formations deep in the forest. A reckless attack would surely lead to a slow death in the wild. Thus, I decided to upgrade Great Qin's arsenal, once more purchasing a set of gas masks, flamethrowers, and universal antidotes. Every Great Qin soldier received this vital upgrade. When the army marched into the southern border jungle, countless venomous insects swarmed them. But since their protective suits were completely sealed, they had no fear of bites. Raising their flamethrowers in unison, it took only a moment before all the venomous pests were incinerated to ash. Witnessing this, the Eternal Tribe warriors were scared out of their wits. How could such terrifying fire exist in this world? Our sacred bugs are completely useless against them, watching from afar. The high priest waved his hand in a fury. Activate the poison arrays! In an instant, countless venomous butterflies carrying toxic dust swarmed forward like a cloud of black miasma, corroding even solid stone as they passed. However, the Great Qin soldiers wore gas masks that easily blocked the toxic dust. As flamethrowers swept the sky once more, swarms of butterflies turned to ash, unable to get within 10 meters of our advancing forces. Desperate, the high priest personally led his elite warriors forward, chanting dark incantations. But the moment they emerged, their positions were spotted by our jungle reconnaissance vehicles. Zhao Xuan immediately ordered them to open fire. Dozens of light mortars discharged simultaneously, their shells landing squarely in the enemy crowd. The enemy warriors suffered devastating casualties, completely losing their chance to cast any more powerful hexes. Great Qin's forces continued their steady, relentless advance. Along the way, every single poison array was completely dismantled. The Eternal Tribe's forces retreated in panic, utterly powerless to injure or slow down the Great Qin army. Seeing that his defeat was inevitable, the high priest bit the tip of his tongue, using both hands to rapidly weave a forbidden spell. I will detonate the ultimate poison array. Buried beneath this altar, I will drag your Great Qin Emperor to hell with me. Right then, I casually tossed a small pebble into my ecological tank and pressed it firmly down onto the high priest, instantly shattering his spell seal. Witnessing this divine intervention, the Great Qin soldiers fell to their knees. The heavenly God himself has acted to save Great Qin. Heavenly God's power is absolute. Praise him for protecting us. All forces annihilate these monsters. After Great Qin conquered 2 massive territories in a row, the Thousand Islands Alliance and the Blackstone Empire were left utterly terrified. The eastern continent consists of hundreds of islands, and the Thousand Islands Alliance only possessed fleets of wooden ships. But Great Qin's greatest strength lay in its modern navy, which wiped them out effortlessly. Now only the Blackstone Empire on the western continent remains. This empire built its capital out of ultra-hard obsidian raising walls that literally touched the clouds. Meanwhile, their ruler hid inside, drinking and partying without a care. He boasted that with the strongest walls in the world, Da Qian's cannons could never break through, claiming that even if their god showed up in person, the city would stand. I will hold out forever, he declared. I stared down at this arrogant little ruler. For this final battle, I decided to grant Da Qian the ultimate siege weapons. I wanted the Blackstone Empire to face absolute power and fall into total despair. Opening the system store, I spent 1 million divine points to purchase the upgrades. I unlocked giant siege cannons and electromagnetic pulse devices. Da Qian mobilized every resource to build them, and within a month, dozens of massive cannons were ready. They were rolled right up to Blackstone City. Zhao Xuan personally marched to the front line, demanding surrender to spare their lives while the enemy ruler stood on the wall. The ruler laughed wildly, shouting that his city was impenetrable. Zhao Xuan did not waste any more words. He simply waved his hand and ordered his forces to open fire. Dozens of giant cannons roared simultaneously, shaking heaven and earth. The massive Blackstone wall instantly cracked open, and after several devastating salvos, the towering barriers began to crumble. With a thunderous crash, the towering wall collapsed. The terrified ruler fell to the ground and was easily captured by Da Qian's soldiers. The Blackstone Empire was officially finished. Seeing this, other small nations quickly sent surrender letters. Da Qian no longer had any enemies, and my loyal people knelt piously before my massive idol. They prayed to me, the Haoshan god sending a massive wave of faith into my body. Suddenly, system notifications began flashing in rapid succession. I had successfully unified the entire miniature world. My rewards were 2 million divine points, a civilization level upgrade, and access to advanced interstellar technology. But right at that moment, the bottom of my ecosystem tank made a faint cracking sound. The lower baffle suddenly burst open, revealing an incredibly vast new landmass below. Peering closer, I saw this was no ordinary terrain. Towering peaks were shrouded in a mystical, immortal aura, with magnificent jade palaces floating elegantly between the mountains. Exotic beasts and birds roamed the landscape, and I even spotted tiny figures flying on glowing swords. When my people saw this, it caused an immediate uproar. Zhao Shen stared up at the sky in complete disbelief. Could this be Shuangzhou, the fabled immortal realm that only existed in ancient legends? The myths claimed immortal beings lived there forever, controlling the wind and rain. As soon as he spoke, the terrified civilians fell to their knees in worship. They bowed deeply toward the newly revealed realm. Even the battle-hardened soldiers looked on with deep reverence, having grown up hearing tales of this magical place. They never imagined this legendary paradise would appear right before their eyes. Meanwhile, news had flooded the capital of how the enemy leader was captured. My Daqian soldiers had easily captured him, completely destroying the Blackstone Empire. Soon every other small nation sent over their official surrender documents. With all threats gone, my people knelt piously before my statue of the Haoshan god, sending endless waves of spiritual faith directly into my body. My system alerts kept flashing, announcing that I had successfully helped Daqian conquer the surrounding lands and unify this entire miniature world. I received 2 million divine points and unlocked interstellar technology. Right at that very moment, the bottom of my ecosystem tank began to crack. The protective bottom plate suddenly shattered, with a loud crash revealing a massive new territory underneath. I leaned in to get a closer look at this strange landscape. It was no ordinary land. Mist-shrouded peaks rose up with spectacular jade palaces floating in the air while mythical beasts and colorful birds roamed freely. I even spotted tiny figures soaring on swords. This incredible sight threw my people into absolute chaos. Zhao Shen looked up at the sky completely stunned. Could this be Shuangzhou? The mythical realm from ancient lore legends said the eternal beings living there ruled the weather, making it an unreachable sanctuary. No mortal could ever hope to set foot there. Hearing this, my civilians fell to their knees in worship, and even the soldiers bowed down. A profound reverence washed over them. They had spent their lives listening to these myths, never dreaming the immortal realm would actually materialize before them. Suddenly, a figure appeared floating in midair. A leading Taoist priest glared down at my people with utter contempt, mockingly calling them a tiny mortal country. "You dare wave your useless scrap metal weapons?" he sneered. "And that Haoshan god you worship is just a pathetic clown hiding in the shadows completely beneath us." His disciple drew a glowing sword, yelling that blind mortals who could not even feel spiritual energy had no right to share a world with them. "Once we crush your pathetic empire, perhaps you can beg near our border." Hearing this, my terrified people looked up at the sky in utter shock. Why would these legendary sacred beings want to destroy Daqian? How could immortals be so cruel? Just then an old general stepped forward. General Chen Yuan volunteered to march against the immortal realm, vowing to slay these arrogant fools. Hearing this, Emperor Zhao Xuan pointed furiously at the sky. "Those immortal thieves want to destroy us," he bellowed. "We will not sit and wait for death. We have our god on our side, and we will win." Crowds gathered outside the palace, begging me for protection. Watching them, I stood outside the glass tank, lightly tapping it with my finger. I certainly did not expect a high-tier cultivation world to pop up. This was getting far more interesting. 3 days later, inside the Daqian Palace, Zhao Xuan called an emergency meeting of all his top officials. He sat solemnly on his throne, declaring that these newcomers were clearly hostile. "Do any of you have a strategy to fight back?" Meanwhile, those arrogant figures hovered above, looking down on my empire with pure disdain. "A pathetic mortal nation playing at being kings with rusted metal," the priest mocked. "Your so-called Haoshan god is nothing but a shadow-dwelling clown, totally unworthy of our notice." His disciple unsheathed his glowing sword. "You blind mortals do not even deserve to breathe the same air as our holy realm. You are unworthy to even stand before true gods. Once we flatten Daqian, maybe your ruins can lie near our holy borders." As those words echoed, my citizens gasped in sheer terror. Why would the revered beings of the legendary immortal realm want to completely eradicate my peaceful empire? How could they be so heartless? Stepped forward General Chen Yuan. He bowed deeply, declaring his readiness to lead a crusade and protect our lands. Wipe out Dakin and kill those arrogant lunatics. Zhao Xian pointed at the sky, roaring in anger. Those Shuangzu thieves want to destroy my empire. How can we just sit back and wait to die? Even if they have cultivation skills, we have the gods on our side. We will crush them. Outside the palace, citizens gathered in massive crowds, shouting in support. May the gods bless us, Dakin will win. Meanwhile, I stood outside the ecosphere, tapping the tank wall with my finger. I never expected an immortal cultivation civilization to pop up here. This is way more entertaining than those weak, low-level worlds from before. 3 days later, inside the imperial palace, Zhao Xian gathered his court officials to discuss the looming threat. Sitting on his dragon throne with a grim expression, he spoke. Those Shuangzu cultivators clearly want us dead. Do any of you have a solid strategy to defeat this enemy? The Minister of War fell to his knees, trembling. Your Majesty, those Shuangzu cultivators are chosen by heaven itself. They possess power that can easily shatter our entire world. Our steam-powered iron armor cannot stand against them. Instead of fighting a hopeless war, we should surrender to Shuangzu. That is the only way to save our people from slaughter. Sure, our God has blessed Dakin before, but now that these true immortals have arrived, he has probably fled to avoid trouble. He cannot protect us from their wrath anymore. The entire court erupted in chaos at his words. Zhao Xian slammed his hand down, leaping to his feet. How dare you, our great God, save Dakin from total destruction? You dare slander the gods and collude with our enemies? Do you think I am dead already? The Minister of War sneered. Your Majesty, do not be so stubborn. Master Shuangyang warned that if Dakin does not surrender within 3 days, he will lead his sect to personally flatten our capital. Today is the final deadline, and regret will get you nowhere. If that sea god is actually as powerful as you claim, why has he not shown up? His words pierced the hearts of the officials like a thorn. The Prime Minister sighed anxiously. Those Shuangzu cultivators are openly mocking us, pushing us to the brink. Yet our God has remained silent for so long. Did he really flee to save himself, just like Shilang said? As doubts began to spread, a massive roar shook the sky. Shuangyangzi arrived with hundreds of cultivators riding their flying swords. Hovering right above the capital, he swept his whisk, unleashing a devastating wave of sword energy. It sliced straight toward the golden roof of the imperial palace. Zhao Xian, your 3 days are up. Surrender now, or I will wipe Dakin off the face of the earth. Zhao Xian walked out of the hall, standing tall and defiant. Do not think you have won. Once our God descends, he will tear every single one of you to pieces. Shuangyangzi snorted with laughter. Your so-called God is a spineless coward. Today I will smash his golden statue and prove to the world that your deity is nothing. These mortal gods are completely pathetic. He raised his hand, sending a blazing golden beam of energy directly toward the pure gold statue standing in the palace square. Zhao Xian panicked, yelling to his artillery crew, "Fire protect the sacred statue." But as the cannons roared, the shells were easily deflected by the enemy's magical shields. The deadly sword energy kept flying toward the target. Just as the statue was about to shatter, I grabbed a plastic fly swatter and slipped it inside the tank. I held it right in front of the golden statue. The blast hit the plastic mesh and instantly vanished. Shuangyangzi gasped, his eyes wide with absolute horror. My ultimate sword attack, blocked by a common mortal tool. Behind him, his disciples trembled, staring up at a giant grid that loomed hundreds of times larger than them. They shook with fear as Shuangyangzi pointed his sword toward the sky, roaring, "Show yourself, you coward! Stop hiding in the shadows and face me like a man. Stop using these cheap parlor tricks. I am the leader of the great Shuangzu sect I have trained for 1,000 years. I will rip you to shreds." He gathered an even massive wave of energy, trying to obliterate the plastic swatter. I watched this tiny guy throwing a hysterical temper tantrum inside my ecosystem tank. I chuckled softly. Where did these annoying little pests come from? Buzzing around on my territory, I gave the fly swatter a gentle wave, creating a massive storm inside. A violent gale ripped through the tank. Cultivators were tossed around like leaves, their bodies crashing hard against the stone palace walls and into the distant forests. Shuangyangzi was pinned to the ground by the intense air pressure, his face pale with humiliation and dread. He looked at his battered, broken disciples around him. Fall back. I will spare your lives for now. But mark my words, I will return with our entire sect to crush Dakin and avenge this deep humiliation. Shuangyangzi forced himself up, grabbing a few bleeding disciples. Pouring every drop of his remaining energy into his flying sword, he made a hasty, pathetic retreat. Seeing their leader run, the other cultivators scattered in panic. Below, the Dakin army erupted into deafening cheers, chanting, "Our great God is truly invincible." Zhao Xian let out a long breath and fell to his knees, kowtowing toward the sky. Thank you for your divine protection, great God, for saving us from this enemy. As the defeated cultivator fled, I shifted my focus back to their sect. The moment Shuang Yangzi landed, he coughed up blood, snarling, "A pathetic mortal kingdom and a faceless god. How dare they humiliate us and kill my disciples if I do not grind that false god to dust? I am not fit to live." He immediately summoned his elders. "Hear my command. Place our entire territory under total lockdown. Drain the power from our spiritual veins, gather every cultivator, and begin forging our ultimate weapons. Activate the 10,000 Immortals Array. In 3 days, I will lead our entire force to flatten Dakin, slaughtering those worthless mortal ants like the pests they are. We will show them the price of crossing us." As the elders bowed, I shook my head at the screen. If this guy really wants to die, I might as well prepare a special gift for him. Without hesitation, I opened my system shop and spent 1 million divine points to purchase an incredible new item. A time acceleration card. It would let Dakin complete years of industrial progress in just 24 hours. With a simple thought, I dropped modern weapon blueprints and the time card straight into the miniature world. With this massive speed boost active, the miracle began. Dakin manufactured 20 long-range rocket launchers and 2 atomic bombs. Zhao Xian stood before his newly equipped, highly advanced modern military. "Today, we march with the ultimate weapons gifted by our God. We will crush Shuangzu, defend our lands, and make them regret their arrogance." With that, they moved. The high-tech army marched toward the enemy sect. Meanwhile, Shuang Yangzi was busy forging weapons in his sanctuary. When he heard that Dakin was attacking, he burst into wild laughter. "Those pathetic mortal ants really have a death wish. Walking straight into my territory saves me the trouble of hunting them down." Saying this, he set down his sacred weapon. "Assemble all cultivators and fight by my side." 2 hours later, Shuang Yangzi finally showed up at the Wanzhou mountain gate. He watched the modern Daqian army slowly crawling toward them. These mortal ants and their scrap metal dare to flaunt their power in front of Shuangzhou. Today I will teach them that the gap between immortals and mortals can never be crossed. Shuang Yangzi's chief disciple stepped forward. "Master, you don't need to take action yourself. I will raise the 10,000 Immortals protection barrier right now. They won't even reach our mountain gate, and they will perish one by one inside the array to show them the true power of Shuangzhe." Saying this, he waved his hand. Hundreds of core disciples immediately fanned out, weaving complex hand seals around the mountain gate. Nearby, spiritual energy rushed in like a torrent. A massive pale golden shield slowly rose, blanketing the entire Shuangzhu peak. Shuang Yangzi tucked his hands behind his back. "Do you see that, mortal ants? This is our ultimate defense, the 10,000 Immortals protection barrier. Your scrap metal can't match it. Even a cultivator with 1,000 years of training cannot shatter it. Today, I will disable all your weapons, leaving you to struggle in vain outside our walls until you starve to death, becoming fertilizer for our spiritual veins." The disciples mocked the Daqian army. "Give up, surrender, and kneel before us right now. Perhaps we will spare your lives and let you work as our slaves. Why is your cowardly god hiding? Is he too scared to face Shuangzhou?" Seeing this, Zhao Xuan raised his hand, ordering a full assault. "Fire shatter that shield with everything you have." Instantly, tanks and rocket launchers roared to life in unison, unleashing a torrent of blazing artillery shells toward the protective barrier. The explosive impact unleashed an earth-shattering roar as they slammed into the shield. Yet the shield barely rippled. Shuang Yangzi burst out laughing. "See that your weapons are a joke to our barrier. They are nothing but a pile of scrap metal. Surrender now, because when I launch our counterattack, you will all be turned to ash." The Daqian soldiers grew visibly uneasy, and Zhao Xuan frowned. Right then, my voice boomed across the mini-world once more. "A bunch of clowns! How dare you brag about this pathetic barrier in front of me?" I reached my hand down into the ecosphere, completely blotting out their sky. Shuang Yangzi stared at the sudden darkness and yelled, "What the hell?" "Don't panic, it is just a trick." Then I lightly flicked my finger. Their ultimate barrier shattered instantly, leaving the disciples trembling in absolute terror. This is impossible. The 10,000 Immortals Guard is a legendary barrier passed down for 10,000 years. How could it be torn apart so easily? "What are you?" I snorted coldly. "Nothing is impossible. You dared to challenge my divinity. Today, Shuangzhou will be erased from existence." With their defense shattered, Zhao Xuan cheered excitedly. "Our God has cleared the path attack with everything we have." Under Zhao Xuan's command, heavy artillery pounded Shuangzhe's temples. The cultivation disciples fell back in disarray. Watching his home burn, Shuang Yangzi waved his whisk like a madman. How can I lose to these mortal ants? Summoning a massive blade of energy, he hurled it at the Dakian troops. But I was ready for this. I ordered the psychic shield activated and used a fly swatter to deflect his attack. The massive rebound sent him crashing to the dirt, completely broken. By now, Shuangzhou was in absolute ruins, their forces utterly decimated. Shuang Yangzi watched in horror as his disciples fell around him one by one. Struggling to his feet, he sank to his knees before Cao Xuan, begging for mercy. I surrender. I will surrender all our spiritual veins to the mighty God. We will serve Dakian as slaves and never resist again. Please spare my life. Hearing this, the Dakian soldiers paused their assault, turning to Zhao Xuan for orders. Xuan didn't dare decide alone. Instead, he bowed deeply toward the sky. Great Haitian God, the rebels of Shuangzi wish to surrender. Please guide us. I set aside my fly swatter. Shuang Yangzi dared insult my majesty. He must die 10,000 times over. Surrender cannot erase his treason. Execute him immediately as a warning to all. Hearing my decree, Xuan stared coldly at him. You heard our God's divine command. Do it. Several soldiers stepped forward, executing Shuang Yangzi and his core inner circle right there. The once arrogant Shuangzhou was completely wiped out. Dakian took over their territory, securing a massive harvest. I personally inspected their resources and found 3,000-year-old spiritual veins feeding the land. I ordered the Dakian soldiers to study cultivation methods immediately to boost their strength. Right at that very moment, a sudden system notification chimed loudly inside my head. Host has helped Dakian eliminate Shuangzhou, securing complete control over the world's cultivation resources. Dakian's civilization level has upgraded. Simulated divine grace has exceeded 5 million. System upgrade rewards unlocked. New real-world privileges granted. First, the host's physical body receives a divine-level shield, granting complete immunity to all illness. Second, divine grace points can be directly converted into real-world cash, specifically 100,000 yen. Third, the host can spend divine grace to unlock any real-world skill, such as teleportation or foresight. As the chime faded, a warm current washed over me. All my exhaustion vanished instantly. My vision and hearing grew incredibly sharp. Since this system upgrade, my real life has transformed entirely. I now look vibrant and healthy, easily looking 10 years younger than my peers. I casually opened the system interface, staring at my points, then tapped to exchange them for 5 million yen. Instantly, my phone buzzed with a massive deposit notification. I spent another 100,000 points to unlock a skill, then approached the ecosphere to see how Dakian was progressing. But the moment I peered inside, my smile froze. The miniature empire was in absolute chaos. Bodies of soldiers and cultivators were piled high like mountains. Strange alien warships hovered in the sky, firing continuous, devastating beams. Every strike flattened Dakian's defenses. Zhao Xuan stood at the front, leading his remaining troops in a desperate final stand, but their weapons did nothing. Instead, they retreated under the relentless alien attacks. Falling back, a bloody general fell to his knees before Zhao Xuan. Your Majesty, these ships their defenses are incredibly strong. If this keeps up, our entire army will be wiped out. Zhao Xuan watches his falling soldiers, crying out, Haochen God, please. Bless Dakian and help us repel these alien invaders. At that moment, I peer closely at their massive warships. Inside the command cabin of the flagship, 2 alien figures are sitting there. The alien leader looks down at Dakian with pure disdain. How dare a lowly civilization resist the Galactic Federation? Today I will completely destroy your world and turn your planet into my colony. The adjutant beside him bows slightly. Commander, this world is primitive. We only need one more full strike to wipe out the rest of their forces. Should we order the final blow? The leader wears a cruel smirk. No rush. I want their emperor to watch his own people get slaughtered with his own eyes. Hearing this, I slowly lower my right hand into the ecological tank. A colossal hand instantly shadows several warships. As the surviving Dakian soldiers see this, they erupt into deafening cheers. They fall to their knees. Haochen God has arrived. Dakian is saved. The alien commander tries desperately to keep his composure and stands tall. God, what a joke. It is just a myth of this primitive race, just a human with a massive body. He cannot defeat our fleet. All warships fire at full power. Instantly, multiple enemy vessels charge up their laser weapons. Brilliant blue beams erupt, slamming directly into my giant hand. But I barely feel a thing. My palm just feels slightly warm. I curl my fingers and squeeze. The futuristic warships crumple like cheap paper. Then, with a casual wave of my hand, another cruiser is swatted, exploding instantly. The leader stares in absolute shock. This is impossible. How can a mere biological body block our high-energy lasers? I chuckle at his confusion. My body was modified long ago. Compared to my upgrades, your weapons are weaker than a mosquito bite. I keep batting down their fleet, destroying the alien vessels one after another. The leader attempts to flee in his flagship, but I snatch it up. No words needed. I simply crush it into stardust. In just minutes, the entire invasion force is wiped out. Zhao Xuan gathers his court and military officials, bowing deeply toward me. Thank you for your divine protection, great Haochen God, for saving Daqian from absolute doom. Just then the familiar system chime rings in my head. The faith of the Daqian people has surged exponentially. The system mall has unlocked the future technology catalog. Curiously, I open the store interface. Countless advanced items from sci-fi novels are now available, but these concepts are way too advanced. Daqian has no way to manufacture them. I sigh. What a waste of effort. All this hard work for blueprints I cannot even use. Then the system chimes once more. Host Divine Grace points have exceeded 10 million. Ultimate clearance is unlocked, granting the blueprint materialization ability. This turns any blueprint from the catalog into fully functional, real-world technology. My eyes light up. This means these futuristic systems are not just for Daqian. They can be deployed right here on Earth, giving my own country a massive technological leap. Excited by the possibilities, I immediately begin redeeming the blueprints. In a flash of brilliant blue light, advanced designs appear. Antimatter missiles, interstellar jump engines, and more. The actual blueprints materialize right in my hands. Each of these files could reshape global power. I do not hesitate. I immediately contact national security officials and offer to turn over every single design. The officers who took my call are skeptical at first, but when they arrive at my apartment and see the physical blueprints on my desk, they are absolutely stunned. Special forces quickly escort the documents to our top military research labs. Within 6 short months, our scientists successfully replicate the advanced weapons and systems. The government honors my contribution, showering me with praise and prestige, but I decline any grand rewards, choosing instead to remain a regular citizen. Watching my homeland grow stronger and seeing my people live better lives is reward enough. I still choose a quiet, low-key life. Except now I have elite state security protecting me. This lets me focus entirely on managing the tiny universe inside my terrarium. I look at the tank again. The great Qian Empire is thriving, blending high technology with spiritual cultivation arts. Deep inside, the citizens are devoutly kneeling before my towering statue. I can feel the warmth of their pure devotion. It fills me with deep satisfaction. I will continue guarding both of my worlds, guiding them toward a brighter future.